Hello, I'm Richard Watson, and this is L'anglais the easy way. Today, I'd like to talk about what is the optimal way of learning. I get this question a lot from my students. What's the best way to learn? How do I optimize my learning time? It's quite a strange question in many ways. We don't ask this question about many things. I've never had someone ask me what the optimal way of walking is, or the optimal way of eating spaghetti, or brushing your teeth, tying your shoelaces. We have ways that we do naturally, that we do easily, and that's good enough for us. And I think there's a real advantage in looking at things like that. Why optimal? Well, people are looking for optimal because they know the path's long. And they're trying to shorten the path and make that path as easy and as fast as possible. Is it optimal to make a list of difficult verbs that you're trying to learn? I had a student a while back who started crying in class. And I thought maybe she'd had some problem in her private life. It turns out she had a list of very difficult verbs she was keeping. And she got to the point where she was panicked because she couldn't remember any of them. And when I said, well, what kind of verbs do you have on your list? She ran through them. To get through, to get over, to look around, to look into, etc., etc. Phrasal verbs, very difficult to learn. I'm not sure crying in class helped a lot, but it did make me realize that people panic about these things. She was looking for an optimal way to learn difficult verbs. Is it optimal to make a list of vocabulary? There's a real complicated calculation that you can make when it comes to lists and grammatical elements. A lot of students spend a lot of time choosing interesting or difficult verbs or vocabulary items. They put them into lists, they find a translation, and then they sit down to revise them and try and learn them by heart. First problem is it doesn't really work. Often they don't remember them. They spend a lot of time looking at them and testing themselves, but after a couple of months, they've forgotten them generally. And I think there's a real calculation you can make. If you're reading a book or an article and you come across a word you don't know, should you stop, write it down, find a translation, put it into a list and start revising that list and trying to memorize that list? Or could we calculate that if instead of doing all of that, you just kept reading and had a lot more experience with English and read pages and pages more and maybe come across the same word in a different context? Because in a book, often you do get this kind of repetition. Maximizing your exposure and experience to English, maybe that should be the objective. And there's a serious calculation about how to invest your time. Which one's better? I would suggest it's better just to use English. Lists are not natural for us. Our brains don't like lists. Lists of numbers are impossible for us to remember, whereas dates and sequences are fine. So what's the optimal way of learning English? You've guessed it. I would say use it as much as possible. Use it for real things. Use it for native speaker tasks, things that native speakers would do. Or what do? Well, we read newspapers. We read books. We watch videos. We watch films. Maximize that. If you're working on that kind of content, you're not just catching words and learning words. You're learning how to use them in context. Learning how to structure your sentences. Perhaps learning how to pronounce those words even. That's a much better investment of your time. Don't make lists, just practice and use more. And the second thing I could say about optimization is optimized things are not necessarily very comfortable. And I would say that in real terms, the optimal way of learning English is to do things that you like. If you do things you like, you'll do them more often. You'll enjoy them more. It'll be a better experience for you. And things that you like lead to more consistency. And basically, I think consistency is king when it comes to learning English. Things you do again and again, and the amount of time you spend in English, that adds up to real English skill. Again, remember, if you go to London or New York for a couple of years, you get good at English. It's the consistency. All of my students who've really made progress in English have built some kind of English learning bubble into their life. They put their phone in English. They read English articles. They watch their films in English. That's the kind of strategy that you can apply without being a professor, without being an academic, without talking about memorization and ways of conceptualizing. Just do what is natural. Language is a natural feature for humans. And we know how it works and we know how to use it. Often we're not using it. We're too busy learning. Stop learning and start using it. That's all for this episode. And remember, always good to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And I'll catch you next time.